Okay, cool. So everybody cool and ready?
Yep.
All right. So hey, three, two, one. Welcome everybody to Sustainiacs. I'm Mike Vincent. She's Emma Whiteman, and she's Dr. Susan Kask, and she is my new best friend. I just met her like 2 days ago, and she's awesome. But anyways, Emma, introduce yourself and introduce our guest, will you?
Yeah, very excited to be here today. We have an awesome guest. Like Michael said, just like new best friend, and I only met her a couple minutes ago. So, very excited to talk to you today, Susan Kask, Dr. Susan Kask. And
Thank you.
do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Susan Kask, and I have been working in this field of environment and economy, social issues and economy for, I was thinking about it today, 45 years.
Have we had an environment for 45 years?
Yeah. Yeah. And
I thought we just noticed it like 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, no, actually, I was in college during the time of nuclear warheads and nuclear energy and
So I was in high school
the beginning of
during that time.
solar energy and the Solar Energy Research Institute. I used to go visit their library when I was in college and gather data for projects. And so I started doing this stuff back when I was a junior in college.
Wow.
It's been a
Wow.
really long time. When
Very.
I thought about that today, I just kind of went, "Oh wow, I don't feel that old." Anyway,
That's
um,
crazy. We'll get into why I hit you up on LinkedIn. I was stalking people on LinkedIn. I look
mhm.
for new guests and interesting things that people are doing because this is what I'm interested in. It's what Emma's interested in, and we want to get that word out there. So obviously, we're looking for people to talk to. But should I call you Doctor Cask or just Doctor? Is Doctor cool?
You can just call me Susan.
Okay, Susan, cool. So Susan, why you're okay? So you're in college and you started doing it, but why did you get into it? Were you always have an affinity for like the outdoors and stuff like that, or was there a moment that you said, you know what, we need to do something here?
No, it was in college. It was through classes. I have always wondered why there were so many poor people in the world. And that came from when I was a child. I lived in India and I used to ride the school bus in New Delhi, and I would see kids and grandparents sleeping on the streets on my way to school. I was,
Mm,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. So that I always had that in the back of my mind about poverty. And when I got to college, I became much more aware of the environment. And so the two have been a passion of mine for my whole career. And always, it's been why? Why does this happen? Why can't economic systems solve these problems? And most of my career, I've been trying to figure that out. And I've come to the conclusion that business needs to do business differently. So
I
I've
got
spent the
you.
past 20 years thinking, okay, well, how do they do business differently? And how can they still be profitable and do business differently? So I guess I finally got, we need government policy, but I got tired of waiting for government to solve the problems. I decided, okay, I needed to get in there and help business do this. So how could I do that? So it's always been how can we do this, not let's just think about it.
So are you an environmental economist, would you say, or more of like an environmental CFO type of thing, helping? And
Well, my PhD is in economics, specialty
okay,
environmental, natural resource, and regulation.
okay, all right. Well,
I
then you
moved
are.
in, yeah, I moved into
There you go.
ecological economics. It was a field that didn't exist when I was getting my PhD. I think it
Wow.
evolved in the
Okay.
90s, early 90s. And so I more practice as an ecological economist because of the issues I cover. Ecological economics is micro, macro environment economics and social justice. So it brings all those things together, fits into the sustainability framework better than environmental economics. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but there you
So
go.
is that where? So did you immediately get your PhD and start values to action? I guess explain what is values to action. Well, let's do this. I found you through Himalayan wildfiber.
Wildfibers.
right? And
Mhm.
you're listed as CSO, I believe, or CFO
Yes.
of Himalayan Wildfire. So let's talk a bit about what they're doing, and then I guess your real job is Values to Action. You're really more of a consultant helping companies figure out how to. Well, you explain it.
Sort of. I mean, I'm part-time retired, part-time
Mm-hmm.
working. So I work where I'm needed and valued. And I started Values to Action in 2016 when I left teaching in academia. And it was something I'd been thinking about doing for, 10 years before then, and just, had kids, family, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I started that company, and in the process of starting to introduce myself to the marketplace, I found Himalayan wild fibers, and I found them through somebody who was working with them back in 2017. And the man was talking about the company in a, conference session, and I kept thinking, oh my God, this is like what I'm talking about a company needs to do: have purpose, do the social and the environment sides of sustainability. In sustainability, people always focus on the environment and they forget the social. And what I really appreciated in the company was that they had both, and they were doing them both solid. They weren't messing around. Um, and so the purpose of the company, Himalayan Wild Fibers, is to provide cash income to some of the poorest people in the world, subsistence farmers in the Himalayan mountains in Nepal. That's the purpose of the company. The
Wow.
CEO,
Okay.
that was her mission. She went looking for how that could happen. She realized this fiber that villagers were harvesting or processing from the Himalayan nettle plant they could do more with that. And she took,
What's the plant called?
it's called Himalayan nettle. It's a wild uh, plant that grows naturally and abundantly in the Himalayan forests. It needs that forest canopy. It only grows within certain altitudes in the Himalayan mountains. It doesn't grow anywhere else in the world, not like that. The Giardinia diversifolia, which is the botanical name, does grow in some other parts of the world, but it's different.
It's
It's
different.
not
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, there's an
And
empress wood in China that grows in China where it grows really fast. It's a really light type of wood, and it where it grows in China, there aren't growing seasons. It's like constant all the time, so it doesn't have like rings, like in a normal
mhm,
tree. Somebody
interesting.
brought it over to the U.S. near Asheville, near where you're at,
Hmm.
and grows it up there. And of course, we have seasons, so now it has rings, but it's also very light. And so luthiers use it to make guitars because it's really light, it's really resonant, it's a really fast growing and sustainable, really great tree,
Hmm.
empress wood. But it's different here than it is in China. It's kind of, is this like a cottonwood, or like is it kind
Well,
of more like a
it's
bamboo that you make into soft
it's
fibers and stuff?
It's a bast fiber, so it comes from the bark of the stalk of
Okay.
the plant. Grows to 9 feet 3 meters. It's one of the longest fibers in the world. It's one of the strongest fibers in
Wow.
the world.
Okay.
It it's harvested. It's renewable natural resource. So you cut the stalk, you harvest the bark off the stalk. That's called bark ribbon. It is dried, and then we pull a fiber from that dried bark ribbon.
Cool. So
Is
And
how
it
did it, so go ahead, Emma, please.
and
is it
so
fast growing like bamboo? Like is it
very,
something
very fast growing.
that's amazing?
But it's, you cut it once a season, and you can cut it there. There's two
Gotcha.
times of year you can cut it, but you can't get one harvest a season.
And
So
will
it
you
only
get
grow.
like a fiber like that's as long as the stalk, or during the processing will it like break and create smaller fibers?
Well, we have to cut it so that, because the uh, the machines that use to spin the yarn can't handle the long fiber.
I was gonna say, could I
So it
just
has
knit
to
with a
be,
long piece of a tree?
yeah, it has to be cut to the specifications for either wool or cotton or silk
Wow.
or
So
linen.
depending on the manufacturer, you would then process it
And
according to what they want, right?
yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
you're saying? Okay,
So it's
cool.
very sustainable in terms of the harvest. It's wild harvested. It's not cultivated. So you're not talking about agricultural land used. You're not dealing with any inputs. And it's harvested by these community forest user groups. And Nepal has a community forest system that they put in place 40 years ago. So they have one of the most studied, I think, community forest systems in the world. And the research, that's one of the things my academics comes in play, because I've been researching their system to establish what our sustainability attributes are for the company, and what we can claim and what we have to prove and what we have to research to see, what's happening. So that's my job with the company, is to figure all that out. And
It
then
is such an interesting thing, the location of it and what is going on there. There's a million things that I'd love to ask, and I want to ask them in the vein of the economics of sustainability, right? And so this is kind of like, and we talked about this on Monday. This is kind of like one of your case studies, right? I mean, you're helping them to do this, and you're learning from these, and I'm sure you're applying what you've learned from other places and learning from these people as well, right?
I started Values to Action before this. My
Okay,
passion is to help small and medium-sized
okay.
businesses
So I
figure out
have
how to
so
do
many
Values to
things.
business
action.
better.
Let's just can we go back a little quick step?
Sure.
Values to action is a service that you provide, or it's a company that you have that
It's
provides like
it's my
consultation.
yeah, it's my consulting company, and it's me, myself, and I help small businesses. That's what I want to do. Help small businesses to be sustainable. I think of myself as the contracted part-time, help the company get all their sustainability ducks in a row, help them
Mm.
figure out how to do
Hmm.
that,
Hmm. Hmm.
actually do that, and have a plan in place. And then I go away and I help them as needed. I'm not supposed to be that expensive for them. I'm kind of like, you hire a lawyer or an accountant for a little while to solve something for you. That's the
Gotcha.
approach I'm
Very
taking.
cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
I
affordable.
got you.
Yeah, that's
That's
and
awesome.
and
So
Himalayan
let
Wild
me
Fibers is my first client and currently my only client. So
gotcha. But you got years of experience in studying this, and there's so much to talk about here. Like what? So one of the things, and Emma, I don't know if you guys, either one of you, watch like Shark Tank or anything like that, right? But there's been plenty of people in there that have really cool products similar to this, right? And then like Mr. Wonderful or Mark Cuban or something, or will say, "Hey, I don't invest in missions; I invest in companies," right? Uh, But the mission is to provide income to those local farmers in a sustainable manner, right? So, isn't that a viable economic business
well,
thesis, or right,
you
or
know,
business
you
plan?
could, what's the purpose of any business? The purpose of
Yeah,
a
right,
business, what is an economy in society? An economy provides goods and services to
right,
society.
right.
Okay. A business has a purpose to supply some kind of good or service to society.
Yeah,
And what Ellie did is she said, I want to help these people, but I'm going to do it through business, not through some nonprofit, not through charitable donation,
yeah,
not through government aid project. One of her favorite quotes is from, I think it's Paul Polak, uh, who talks about the way to get rid of poverty is to, create jobs in business. It's through
sure.
business. It's through
Yep.
work. And so that was her passion, that she wanted to help these people have cash income. It doesn't substitute their subsistence farming work. It complements it.
Mm.
Because subsistence
Mm.
farming is their way of life. It's their
Mhm.
culture, but they need more than that.
Well,
And
she's
so
added a new crop form, right?
well, it's not a crop because it's not cultivated. It's the forest, which community forest user groups are membership groups. They are members. They have a forest which they commonly manage sustainably, required by law to manage sustainably to the benefit of all members of their group. And so
So how do they control harvesting and inventory and stuff like that?
they are supposed to map and then harvest sustainably for the members of the group. So their incentive is to keep the forest in good shape. They're also by law required to invest in the forest, to plant trees, to take care of the forest from forest fire, and do things like this. So
You mean they have to act like adults and get along and work together and collaborate?
I was going to say, I wish more people
It's
were
insanity.
like that. Wow.
That's
well,
insanity.
it's a real interesting system for managing a commonly owned resource and it's for the benefit of that community.
Wow.
And so what Ellie figured out is that there is this plant that it could be valuable in the marketplace, but she had to create a global market for it. There's already a market for it locally, but she wanted to add value, but she needed to not sell artisan products in Nepal, which don't have much value to tourists. She wanted to get the fiber into the global fashion sector. So basically, when I learned about her company, what I realized is she's bringing global fashion dollars from the luxury sector, and they're getting funneled because it goes through the textile sector, but they're getting funneled straight back to these harvesters. And that's
I love
what
the intersectionality of like environmentalism, how you can say, okay, well, here's a really eco-friendly option to a very uneco-friendly industry. And then let's just, provide economic support and support for those who are like less fortunate.
And our job as a company is to make sure those harvesters get paid fairly. We're committed to that.
Right.
And we're committed to making sure the bark ribbon is harvested sustainably.
Well, and that commitment is what sets you apart as well, because there's tons of companies that can say, here's this very luxury item, and we're going to have this huge profit off of it, but we're going to pay these laborers 5 cents a day because they don't know any better, right? But to actually, that commitment is like a very important thing. I think that people need to realize it's not, these are real people, and they are actively protecting the environment that we're profiting off of. It's very circular.
Exactly.
Well, and you're supporting these people. I mean, it's tremendous stuff. Is there a site for Himalayan wild fiber where people can go buy a sweater or a shoe or something, or no? What is it?
We don't make final product. We produce fiber, and then we sell that
So
into
the industry,
chain.
the textile industry. Where does the textile industry go to learn about this? Is there a website there, or do you guys
There's
just
a
keep
Himalayan
that
Wild Fibers website?
But it's straight B2B type of stuff. Like I can buy bales of this stuff, right?
B2B,
but I can't buy.
I'm wearing this shirt. This sweatshirt was produced by Pangaea. It came out in 2021, I think it was. And this is made from wild Himalayan nettle, organic seaweed. I have to read it.
Wow.
What else is it? There's a bunch of things in it. Organic seaweed, bamboo, and eucalyptus.
Wow. This is really cool.
Those are the fibers that made the thread that go into this sweatshirt.
Wow.
And Himalayan nettle is one of them.
Sounds kind of like some sushi.
And that Pangaea is a British material and retail. They produce,
I love it. I love it.
But Himalayan nettle is still a new fiber in the textile sector. So it has to be picked up by that sector. So we're still a startup. We're still
I'm going to introduce you to somebody, good friend of mine. I met him several years ago. His name is, I call him Brian Vowell, but his last name's Eoe. He's Nigerian, and he is in the textile sustainability for textile and supply chain as well. I'm going to introduce him to you. He's in New York City and he's got connections all over the place. This is right up his alley. That would be tremendous. Let's expand this. Let's expand this a little bit, because you said something. You said that you focus on and you want to focus on the entrepreneurs, the small businesses, the startups, et cetera. So let's talk about the economics of sustainability. And Emma, I was talking to her about our show with Mr. Supply Chain, right? With Daniel Stanton, and about how he was talking that, unfortunately, companies have to answer to their stakeholders and shareholders, right? And therefore, the E in ESG is very, very, very difficult for them to keep as a mission, because, you know, like I said, nobody wants to invest in a mission. They want to invest in a company, but every company's got a mission and they pretend to have ESGs. Right? It's kind of like recycling. Is that BS,
So
Susan? I mean, how do they do
here's
it?
my answer. And you're right. Every company has a mission. Every company has owners that they have to answer to. But I will add something to that. Every company has a responsibility. You know, every company has the opportunity to use resources to produce goods and services that benefit the owners, and owners need to be benefited because that's how they get
Sure.
their income. And we often think of companies as shareholders, they're shareholders. But I want you to know, I actually looked up a number because I think it's really important to realize of the 8 million establishments in the United States, only 25% of them are corporations with shareholders. The remainder are either S corps, individual, sole proprietorships, partnerships, a lot of different types of companies. So I don't think of just shareholders. I call them, everybody's an owner. You have owners, and they need to receive income from their company. I get that. But every company has a responsibility as well. Just as
Yeah.
we as citizens in society have responsibility, we have rights, we have responsibilities. Companies have rights to make decisions about their companies, but they also have responsibility to all of their stakeholders. And one of their stakeholders is the planet.
Yeah.
Earth.
No, you're absolutely right. It
So,
really
Yeah.
is. Go
so
ahead,
One of
Emma.
the most major, because this is the thing I always think of is like, if the planet is gone, you don't have a business anymore. So it's
exactly.
actually in your
If your
best interest to
community
protect the planet.
is trashed and your employees are abused, you don't have anything. And as an owner, if whether you're do you want to be the stockholder of a company that's trashing the planet? No. Now, that all said, companies don't have to pay for the right to pollute. They don't have to pay, they might have to pay for the land that maybe oil or coal or natural gas or other minerals are on, or the land that they put a factory on, but they don't have to pay. If they trash it, they don't have to pay for that. Nobody charges them to pollute. They should. We should. You should have to have a permit to pollute water, air, or destroy the land. I believe that if you're cutting down trees in a community to build houses, you should be required to plant 4 times as many trees as you cut down.
We'll call it
Right now,
the Lorax law. I
yeah,
like
we have law. We do have that type of a law for
We do.
wetlands in the United States, but we don't have it for trees. And
No,
so
you're
they're
right.
just
So,
so
Dr.
it's
Susan,
about responsibility and then
it is.
internalizing costs.
That
So
it is, Doctor. So, I mean, let me ask you this: Are you
but wait,
familiar?
wait.
Okay,
There's
go
one
ahead.
more thing I want to say.
She
Okay.
she's like a
There's a
professor, Emma.
Yep, there's the assumption that if you're going to be environmentally friendly, it's going to cost you more.
Right.
That's an assumption. It has been
Okay.
shown in reality that it's not necessarily going to cost you more. You might save money. You might become more innovative. You might
Which I
Or
produce
think is
better
what we need
or
to
products.
you
get
make
people
more
for.
money through growing your top line revenue, as in the case of Freightvana, who Emma remembers. We talked to the CEO and founder, or
Well, and
co-CEO
not
and
only that,
founder.
but having a more
Yeah.
dedicated customer base that's more willing to pay
Well, that's
more
what they
money.
did.
Like
Yeah,
you grow your your share of the market because
Yeah.
you are showing that you actually have a dedicated interest in sustainability, and people notice.
Yeah, they
exactly.
absolutely
People
do.
aren't. We have access to everything at our fingertips nowadays. I read some stat where it was like the searches for like most sustainable product were like up by like 90% or
Oh
something.
yeah, absolutely.
Some crazy
Here,
number.
so
Like
Doc,
it's
oh,
smart
go.
business.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
incredibly smart business. So, Doctor, two things. One, are you familiar with Alfred North Whitehead? The
That
old
sounds familiar, but
well, he was a business scholar at Columbia University way back in the day, and a philosopher. Right, he wrote like Adventures and Ideas and so on and so forth. But a part of his business teachings was that like a society is only as great as the importance its men and women of business place on their contributions towards that society. And that's what you're talking about. Be true to your mission,
yeah.
and you've got to do this. You've got to do this stuff.
It's business
amazing.
with purpose, but it's business with principles as well,
Right.
guiding principles that govern how you do what you do. And what's wrong right now in our standard business model is the guiding principle is maximize profit. And that's it.
Right.
That's the
yes.
guiding purpose, and it's the guiding
Right.
principle.
Instead of I can provide this service or this product that will really help somebody, I have the ability to do this. It's, I can make a lot of money doing this, which both are important. I will say both are important. I'm never going to.
So in the business model that Himalayan wildfibers use, profit is there. Profit has to be there. But profit is a constraint. It's something we have to meet. And we have a minimum, right now, because we're not quite profitable yet.
Right.
We soon will be. But we have a profit target we're trying to get to, but we're not trying to maximize that. We want to get to a profit target. We'll probably end up being above it. That profit will end up being shared and pushed down to our harvesters and our workers, as well as the owners.
So let me ask you this. As part of the sustainability problem, or the majority of the problem, we always look to the consumer and irresponsible use of plastic. So they waste this, or they get duped by the marketers into thinking that I have to have fast fashion. What I wore this year is no good next year, and stuff like that. That's why the fashion industry is such a bad player when it comes to the environment, is that fast fashion stuff. Is it them, or is it the financial institution, which ruins basically our entire world, in my opinion? And I have a friend who always says, hey, listen, if you let the financial institutions, the investors, create an engine, they'd make an engine that went 1,000 miles an hour in a quarter mile and blew up. Right. Well, that's what would happen. Which one's more responsible? Because even if you want to do good, if you want capital to build that business, you've got to, like you said, continue to maximize profit. Getting to 50% profitability isn't good enough. You have to go to 50% to 48%, or that 50% has to be 50% of 100 million, then 200 million, then a billion, and 3 billion. So
there has been a change in our financial sector over the last, I'll say, 40 years. Not that it wasn't a problem before. Obviously, we had the Great Depression of 29. And we had the financial crisis of 2008. So there are clearly problems. There's a reason the financial sector is regulated. There's a reason banks are regulated. There's a reason there are those firewalls. They're there for a reason. FTX, look what just happened to them. There's a reason that there should be protection.
Enron, the housing bubble.
However, banks are important. They lend to small business.
Yes.
Investors are important. Angel investors have helped Himalayan wildfibers get to where they are. They are really important. They will get a return on their investment. They've taken a big risk. They're going to get a return on their investment. They're going to get a good return on their investment. Are they going to become billionaires because of us? No. Are they going to get a good return because of the risk they took? Yes. They have to be patient for that. So investors do have to change their purpose for investment. That's true. But, this idea that you can, start investing at 50 and make $1 million and retire at 55. Yeah, it does happen for a few people. It happens, people make money in their 30s and they get really rich and they can retire. Yeah, that happens. You get lucky. There's a company that's, ends up being really popular. Okay, but is that company paying the true cost of the impact of what they have on the planet and on people? Are they building those riches on the backs of people? So this is, again, where you have to bring your principles into your company. You still need investors. You need people who are willing to take risk. You need owners. Every owner who starts a company is taking a risk.
Yeah.
You need that. And there's nothing wrong with wealth. It's just that who do you build that wealth on the back of? And you want to think long term, not short term. So I mean, I know it sounds all like, oh, she's just a dreamer.
No,
well, that's why we have regulations.
No, It
you
sounds
know?
like you're doing the right thing. Let me ask you this: are you seeing a difference in the investors, the VCs, et cetera, institutional investors, et cetera, and private investors, because of the pressure for consumers? Because I've read several things where investment houses, et cetera, are coming under scrutiny for the greenness, if you will, of their investment portfolio. Do you see any
Yeah,
difference?
what Texas has done, but what's really interesting is they're going to end up costing. They're
Okay,
going to
yeah.
end up costing,
Let me hear what you're talking about here.
and
Let's hear it.
losing
What's your
opportunity. They're going to. I think one of the what I was reading, one of the consequences of the governor of Texas saying that, Texas state pensions or whatever couldn't invest with, green. Well, now their options are less. They have limited options where they can borrow and where they can invest,
Hmm.
and their borrowing costs are going up and their investment opportunities are becoming limited. So, you know, you don't we don't want the it's difficult. Business doesn't want the government telling them they have to be clean, but then the government, Texas is saying, well, you can't be clean. You can't choose to be clean. So you can only choose to not care or don't pay attention. And the thing is, from an investment perspective,
Because of the
taking care.
risk of the greenness of the risk of green investments. Is that what it is?
Well, the reason they did it was culture wars. We don't want. They did it for a culture wars reason, not for a practical financial reason.
Yeah. See,
Which
is
Um,
I
it what?
think that too much of what goes down nowadays is based on culture. We don't want to seem like we're okay with this, or we want to like there. Not, we don't have to get too
so
political, but
so
it's
here's
frustrating that
Let's.
the
yeah, but
environment is politicized in this way.
here's
Yeah.
I did a study back in. It was in the 90s. I can't remember it was published. Maybe 97, maybe earlier. um, Asking this question: does being green, having CSR in those days, called it corporate social responsibility,
Yes.
does having corporate social responsibility and being in one of these, categories of choosing only companies that satisfy certain criteria of responsibility,
Hmm.
does that yield a better, stronger portfolio? And what we did, we analyzed companies that met certain criteria, that got into, were allowed to be in those corporate social responsible mutual funds. So we selected those companies that met those criteria, and then I did this with a finance professor here at Western Carolina, and we did an analysis of their. We did use two finance indicators. I don't remember what they were. This was a long time ago.
Okay.
And it came out that, yes, being green or socially responsible actually had a positive impact on portfolio.
Yeah.
It did,
Yeah.
in on average sort of way, when you do that kind of statistical analysis. So, and we were curious, was our analysis hugely sophisticated? No, it was a pretty simple one. I think there's been a lot of that kind of research since. We were definitely in early research doing that kind of work. Um, so, the assumption that if you do that, it's going to be negative is wrong. The
Yeah. Yeah.
assumption that being socially responsible, whether environmentally or socially, is going to cost you more is wrong. And, there's tons of evidence in the consumer marketplace that consumers will pay for socially responsible products. And I did research on living wages and found that regionally, consumers would pay more for products when they knew workers were paid a living wage.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. Yeah. No.
so
Yeah.
you
Yeah. All
know,
those numbers are there for 100%. They are definitely there, and they're catching up to government. What do you think about things like the Biden administration just is coming out and saying now that he just announced it just a little bit. It's not mandates on green or emissions or anything, but it's mandated that you have to measure and report. Right. That's like the first step to
for
figuring these things
publicly
out.
owned companies. So
Right, for
yeah,
publicly owned companies, so the
yeah,
small ones.
and
So along that vein, is it helpful to have that type of like EPR legislation, et cetera, to kind
well,
of level that playing field to make sure that the big dogs who aren't forced to do it will allow for and for that cost differential? Because some of those things, it does cost more to utilize, recycled goods than non-recycled goods in many cases, right?
Yeah. So you have a couple of questions there, and first of all, consumers can't buy what they don't know you do. So
Right.
labeling is really important, and honesty in labeling is really important. So that's
Yeah.
one piece of the puzzle. It's the same with stock. If you're investing in a company, that's why we have all the SEC rules and information. You have to have good information, and environmental and social issues are a risk for companies. It's a material risk, and they should be reporting on how climate change is going to affect their company. We in Himalayan wildfibers have to think about how climate change is going to affect our company. And we should do that just from a basic risk management perspective, and every company should be. And then, of course, if climate change is going to be bad for your company, it's really in your best interest as a company to try to mitigate that risk.
Yeah,
First,
you would think.
You have to be resilient as a company. And I mean, the fact that Florida and Texas have been so instrumental in preventing, the real, they've been contributing to climate denial, when Florida is one of the states that's going to be so hugely impacted by it,
Yeah.
i.e. the recent late hurricane, these things, and Florida with that freeze of a couple of years ago, which
Texas,
which
yeah,
completely ruined their electrical grid. So
well, it screwed up the supply chain pretty good too.
yes, we had a gas crisis because of that problem. I think
Yeah,
that was
that's
one, or maybe
exactly right.
that was a different one. I mean, there's so many different things happening. It's hard to keep track, but it's really important. I think, mandated information is important for people buying stock. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
when you asked that question, when I saw that question, I was listening to your speaker from Enzo,
Oh yeah,
that you
Paul
had.
Whiteman. Paul
And
Whiteman.
when he was talking about his product, I immediately thought his product or products like his need to be mandated to be put in plastics. That may cost more. It may not cost more. I don't know how it affects the cost of plastics. But really, we consumers, ultimately, that cost needs to push all the way up. Consumers need a true price signal that demonstrates the cost of their products that they consume on everything, the planet, on workers, on the economy, everywhere. I mean, we have to know we can't
Well,
make good. The market doesn't work efficiently if price signals are wrong. So if you don't
Yeah.
have all those costs embedded in price, so if that's what it's going to take to get to be a big solution for plastics, it should be mandated. Unfortunately, it's really hard to pass laws like that.
Well, it costs you a few
Um,
$1 million, and you got to get the attention of a lobbyist to work
yeah,
for a few years to
yeah.
make that happen,
So
right?
even though it's like it's a great market
no
solution,
brainer.
you
No
know,
doubt.
to get internalized costs into price. And that's a capitalist economist solution, but it requires government to level the playing field, and also government to make sure that all consume, I want to see on my plastic that this is in it. I want all the companies that send me something. And then the EPR legislation you mentioned, extended producer responsibility. Boy, would
Yes.
I love that as a consumer. I am so sick and tired of having to deal with the packaging crap that companies put on my products. Half of it I don't need.
Agreed.
Do
Oh
you
no, you're
remember?
absolutely right.
Agreed.
And there's a person out there. I'll shoot you the information. I can't think of her name right now, but that's what she does on LinkedIn. And part of her job is she's a consultant for packaging, and she goes out on LinkedIn and just shames people. She'll buy stuff just to show people how ridiculous the packaging
You
is.
know how you go into the store and you buy some little electronic something, and it
Yeah,
comes in this package that it takes,
yeah,
a jackhammer to get out of.
yeah,
First of
Right.
all, it's in this
Pair of
plastic,
yes.
scissors needed
and
to
the
open another
package
pair of
is
scissors.
this big, and the product is this big. Why? And
My
I know,
girls love rainbow high dolls, shadow high dolls, LOL dolls. Those are the dolls, right? Barbies
Mhm,
are gone. These are the dolls now, but they package them as if they're made out of solid, gold or
gold.
titanium or something like
Yeah.
that. Because you got to go through 47 layers of plastics just to get to this doll. That's probably worth about 20 cents, but costs you 30 because
Yeah.
the packaging is
And
unbelievable.
And think about it. In the old days, they used to, packaging was a big issue. One for marketing, and the other for theft.
Yeah,
So I mean, I kind of get it, but these days, with all the electronic stuff you can put in stuff, you can deal with theft in a different sort of way. We've got so there's innovative solutions, but we do things the old way because that's the way we've been doing it, and
yeah.
we have to think product design, we have to think packaging, you know, and and then also delivery. Like, why can't I just take that jug of whatever something came in and go back to the store, refill it, and pay for it and leave again? Why do I have to get a whole new package that whatever the liquid came
Right.
in?
Well, if you drink beer, you can get yourself a growler and just go down to the liquor store and get a new growler full of beer. You
Actually,
don't
I
have to
was
buy.
gonna say too, if you use shampoo and conditioner, we interviewed Plain Products. They're
Plain
another
products.
Yeah.
great
Lindsay
company.
McCoy.
But
Lindsay
but
Yeah.
I see
McCoy.
what you
Yeah.
mean though. It's like the
Yeah.
most
No, you're right.
sustainable thing is the thing you already have, and
Yeah.
yet we're in a situation where we're constantly forced as the consumer to be buying plastic. I mean, like for example, you want a bag of tortilla chips. Yes, you could get the tortillas fresh from a store and cut them and fry them. You're going to
That's
grab the
not going to
bag,
happen.
and
Right.
that's your only option. There's no
And that's why I was so excited about his additive that can go into plastics,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
there are some packaging things that there really aren't other options, and so then we have to have a solution for the plastic. When you think of a circular economy, you have to think of what goes into that economy, and it needs to be renewable, and then you have to think of what comes out, and the waste that comes out has to decompose.
yeah.
And I love this talk about how landfills actually can become energy generators. That's a great
Sure.
circular value. There's circular value there in the waste, and
I,
then
I
that
love his. I love their theory, or not their theory, but I love their vision and mission that is all inclusive. Right. This isn't necessarily bad. We just got to use it the right way. I love that.
exactly, it becomes raw material. So you have either circular value that your waste becomes energy, or you have circular value in that waste becomes new material. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, because of the laws of thermodynamics, some of that you're always going to have some waste that can't be used.
But we can do
Well,
our best.
yeah, yeah.
But we
And the
can do our
plastics
best.
eventually die. You can only recycle plastics so much, and then they
and,
have to
and
go
when
to
it
the.
ends up, and there's some, like I said, some packaging where you really, food and healthcare, there's industries where it's really the best product. So then how do you give it
Yeah,
circular
yeah, yeah.
value?
Getting rid of plastics is not the answer. It's using it
Mhm.
responsibly and figuring out the answers to those questions. Is you mentioned circularity, okay? And Doctor, he's not. Well, I guess he is a doctor actually, but Daniel Stanton, Mr. Supply Chain. We were talking about it. We were talking about circularity, right? And he was talking about the supply chain and how the flows of goods and money go back and forth, and information goes both ways. And when you add in that circular part of it, that's where the economics break down. And I argued that I think we just really need to look at that end, the end of life of stuff, as a new mine or a new field that's growing things, and start over. Because if you're throwing it away anyways, process it again. Does that make logical sense or economic sense?
It does. The economics of circularity doesn't break down in the
Right.
supply chain. You just
I
have to
didn't think
think of the
so.
supply chain as a lot of bubbles connected together.
Right. Okay.
We think of circularity in a big sort of economy-wide perspective, and most of your
Yeah.
drawings are that, and that's great, because you have to think of what's going in, what's coming out, what's going around. Those are the three pieces of a circular system. think of it as a system, the economy as a whole, and then you have to start scaling down, scaling down, scaling down. As a company, Himalayan Wild Fibers, we think about our own circularity. So we have to think about what's coming in. We have raw material coming in. Okay, that raw material is getting processed. So we've got all these inputs coming in. So where are those inputs coming from? We, even though being at the beginning, raw material supply chain for textiles, we're still buying some chemicals. We're still buying machinery, so there's supply chain there. Where do those come from? How are they produced? Can they be circular? How does that get disposed of? What happens to it? What's its end of life? So, it's a lot of bubbles all connected to each other. And it has to be thought of from the business level scale perspective, and then all the way to the economy perspective. But everybody has to think beginning, what's coming in, what's going out, where's it going? How do I deal with it? And if everybody starts thinking that way, there'll be a lot of innovation. What happened? Businesses take stuff to the landfill. I take stuff to the landfill. What's happening at the landfill to help all of us be more circular? So
how can we play better with the stuff that we're bringing, or play better with the interact? I should say better with the landfill.
So you have a system, and you've got to change the paradigm, how we all think, how we all go about making the decisions we make in every aspect of our business. And then where are the leverage points that will help us meet those targets of circularity, of, sustainability? Because circularity that's a system of how you deal with the physical stuff in your system. It doesn't include, sustainability is a more general perspective of operations and principles. Circularity is just one of the environmental, physical stuff.
It's an interesting perspective.
Ways to think about things.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I love it. So, Dr. Susan Kask, one more time, where do people find out about Himalayan wild fiber? I mean, they're B2B, but where do they go and figure that out?
Well, if they want to learn more about the company, they should go to HimalayanWildFibers.com, and it is a website that tells about the company.
All right. So where do people get in touch with you and they say, hey, listen, I'm a small business and we're sustainable and I can't figure this stuff out. I need somebody to help me out with the finances and the economy and look at this.
They can contact me through Himalayan Wild Fibers, and my client wouldn't mind that at all. Susan at HimalayanWildFibers.com. Or I have a private email, but that's probably the best way to contact me first, and then I'll direct.
It's the best way for you to manage it as well. Her phone number is, and she only takes calls at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Well, only the pickleball players are allowed to call me.
Oh, there you go. Pickleball. See, we got to stop that evil scourge.
Don't say that around Michael.
Pickleball is not sustainable, my friends. Don't get sucked into it.
It is true. They are. If the plastic balls are made of recycled plastic, maybe it's better.
Maybe so.
But it sure is fun for old people. And maybe young people too.
I know a lot of people that love to play. And in fact, I was watching the world. I guess they were the championships this past weekend. I was
That's
watching.
Cool.
Well, I didn't. I'm not that serious about it, but I
wasn't either. I was just watching it because I wanted to prove. I was watching it to see, is there anything to this? Is there actual skill going on here? And what I saw are 4 people hitting a ball real slow until someone gets bored and hits it hard, and then they score a point. That's what I saw. I don't know.
Wow.
Anyway.
Did we cover all the topics you were hoping to cover today?
I would love to keep going, but we're 51, almost 52 minutes into it. I'd love to talk more. I think we would love to invite you and come back and talk some more about it. And I think it would be tremendous. I think we would love to have you back and run through some EPR legislation and the economics of it and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
Go
I would
ahead,
love
Doctor.
to have talked more about the EPR too.
Yeah.
So we'll have you back on and chat a little more about
I'm a big fan of EPR, that I'll tell you. So the next time we talk, let's talk about growth too. There's been a lot of things in the news about degrowth. Even The Economist magazine had something on it. CNN. That's really interesting that's hitting
That's awesome.
mainstream media.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So let's do that. Yeah. So hey, anybody, listen, this has been the Sustain X. It's awesome. She's Dr. Susan Kask. She's awesome. Reach out to her, learn about Himalayan wild fibers, even if you're not a business. Just learn about it and find out where the heck they're selling this stuff so you can get a cool sweater like hers and you can like live with intention because you don't have to buy fast fashion. You can actually be and help the sustainability of our businesses and our environment just by taking the time to go, wait a minute, what did the Sustaining X say I should buy? What did Emma say I should buy? What did Dr. Susan? No, seriously, just live with a little bit of intention. And hey, you can look us up anywhere, anywhere. Just type it in the Sustaining X and you're going to find us. You're going to find us on LinkedIn. You're going to find us on YouTube. You're going to find us on all the podcast players, Apple and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. The Sustaining X or sustainingx.com on the web. I'm Michael Vincent on LinkedIn, and I'm also the Sustaining X and Michael Vincent on also on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And Emma is somewhere. I don't know what she's doing. She's on.
Yeah,
She's on MySpace, I think. Still.
I think I'm a little too young for MySpace, Michael. Actually, believe it or not. Yeah. So Emma Sustaining X on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to reach out or if you have an idea, please let me know. I was going to say, please look up Himalayan wild fibers because as a knitter, I need us to demand that this yarn is very widely used so I can get my hands on some.
We do have yarn sold in the U.S.
She's got yarns. She's got yarns sold in the U.S.
Yeah, sold in
okay, there we go. All right.
Sweet.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
So,
yeah, hey, you can email us too. Don't we have an email? The sustainingx@gmail.com.
Yep.
All right, do that
and
too.
again, any questions that you have for Dr. Susan, we're hoping to have her back on again. So please let us know. Yeah. Thanks, Susan. We had a great time.
Thank you all for having me. I had a great time too. This was fun.
Hey, everybody. Peace and love.